Good morning, you guys. I have been reading this book this week to my upper grade classes, and it is such a neat legend from the Dominican Republic. And I wanted to share it with you guys so you could all read it. As you can see, I'm sporting my awesome Wizard Run t shirt. Through the pandemic, I've done 4 different runs. I'm out walking and running anyway, so I've been joining these runs. And as you finish them, you get to in the mail your stuff shows up. And I not only got, you get to choose which shirt you want, by the way. And as you saw, I also got a wand. Oh my gosh, I was so excited about my magic wand. So cool. Anyway, so get out there and do some walking and join some of these runs if you want to. Let's go ahead with La Vieja Belen. And you can see that it's written in English and Spanish. I'm going to be reading the English, obviously. Um, and at the end, it'll tell you a little bit about the legend. This is a 4.2 accelerated reading level book and where it comes from. Okay. Beautiful. There was an old woman named La Vieja Bien, who was always so busy her days had no end. She was busy at sunrise, still working at noon. At sunset, at midnight, light shone in each room. She washed and she dusted, she sewed and she swept. Between batches of cookies, I suppose that she slept. The flowers in her garden were arranged in neat rows. The stars over her house seemed more brightly to glow. There's the stars. She polished your shoes when you came into her gate. She mended the holes in your socks while you ate. Before you could leave, La Bien had you take a toy or a trinket or treat she had baked. She wanted each person to feel cared for and blessed. When that job was finished, she claimed she could rest. She was hardworking, friendly, and generous too, but she never took time to sit down with you. And so, though her house seemed a heaven times 10, something was missing. La Vieja Bien. As she dusted her flowers one wintry night, La Vieja Bien beheld such a sight. A star shone more brightly than any she'd seen. Perhaps it was one she had recently cleaned. It beamed a bright path over oceans, on shore, uphill and downhill to stop at her door. And not only that, on that path she saw coming, with a flurry of banners and a fanfare of drumming, 1, 2, 3 kings. She rubbed hard at her eyes, for believe me, just one would have been a surprise. They rode camels with saddles that were made of pure gold. Their robes sparkled with diamonds, their breath plumed in the cold. She dashed around madly, cleaning up and down stairs, though truly there wasn't a bit of dust anywhere. When the knock came, she had 3 feather beds ready. Her table was spread with a banquet already. The first said, I'm Melchior. The second, I'm Gaspar. Can you guess? Grinned the third. Who then is Belteshazzar? We wondered, they asked, if by chance you might know of a king born in a stable in the last day or so. There we go. A king born in a stable? Yes, ma'am, they repeated. A king born for the poor, not the least bit conceited. A king born for the poor? The 3 answered, exactly. They nodded their crowned heads, quite matter-of-factly. La Bien said, I'm sorry I don't know any kings, but would you like supper and a soft bed to sleep in? I'm hungry, said Gaspar. I'd love some of that stew. I'm starved, added Melchior. Belteshazzar boomed, me too. But though they were famished, the kings wouldn't eat unless the old woman took part in the treat. A meal without company is meat without sauce. We can only enjoy this if you share it with us. And so she was forced. To oblige their request, La Bien sat down and she dined with her guests. The kings feasted. They rested. They thanked her and smiled. They asked her to join them in search for this child. La Bienne was so tempted, a king born for the poor, but her eyes fell on their mud tracks and crumbling floor. Crumbles on the floor. The pile of dishes to be washed and then dried, the feather beds fluffed and the rug shaken outside. I'm sorry, she told them, I've got too much to do, but perhaps when I'm done here, I'll catch up with you. The next day, as she cleaned, as she made up the beds, the king's invitation went round in her head. She put salt in her cookies and soap in her bread. She couldn't remember if her hogs had been fed. A king for the poor, she remembered and sighed, as she gazed up with longing at the stars in the sky. By the end of the week, she glanced round in distress. My word, but her house was a terrible mess. She felt so forlorn since her 3 guests had gone. It no longer mattered that she had her chores done. I'll join them, she thought. But what shall I bring? What would be the best gift to give to a king? Melchior had brought gold, Gaspar myrrh in a flask. Guess who brought frankincense? Balthazar had asked. She searched all her cupboards and filled up a sack with all of the treats and the toys she could pack. She set out at night, led by the star. In a week, those 3 kings could not have gone far. She traveled for years, decades, centuries, eons, asking Persians, Africans, Indians, Europeans if 3 kings had come by in search of a fourth. She thought when they left her, they'd been headed north. But no one had seen them. To this day she kept searching, and at each house she stops, if there's a poor urchin, she wonders, could this be the king for the poor? And so just in case, she leaves a treat at the door. For truly she's found, after thousands of miles, there's a prince and a princess inside of each child. Sometimes as she travels, she looks up to the sky. At those times, you bet she lets out a sigh, remembering the lesson she learned from those guests. Of all the gifts you can give, your time is the best. So, if she finds children awake where she stops, she sits down on their beds and she asks them what's up. And believe me, she'll listen for as long as it takes, for she would not want to repeat her mistake of being too busy to give time to her friends. La Vieja Belen won't be missing again. The end. This is a really neat story by the author of how she celebrated La Vieja Belen. There were 3 celebrations: Christmas, the 3 Kings Day, and this La Vieja Belen a week later. And no matter how poor you were, you knew that you would always get a little trinket or something from her. You should pause and read it for yourself. It's wonderful. And here it is again in Spanish. Oh, let me give you that one more page. Have a great day.